Hey guys, tonight we're leaving the loud myths and polished documentaries behind and heading somewhere slower, dustier, and heavier, right into the shadow of the Great Pyramid itself. No torches, no curses, just the sun climbing over the eastern desert and the quiet dread of another long workday among blocks that don't move themselves. You're here now, barefoot, or nearly shoulders already aching from yesterday. You haven't even touched a tool yet. The morning air is dry, sure, but still cool. That won't last. The desert always keeps its promises, and one of them is heat. You probably won't survive this if you're expecting magic or miracles. There's no secret technology, no ancient aliens, no whispers in the sand, just limestone copper tools and a schedule drawn in dust and sealed with sweat. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. I'd love to know where you're falling asleep from tonight. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You're standing near the base of the pyramid, not the finished one you've seen in photos, all gleaming symmetry and tourist stares. No, this is early. There are mounds of rubble, partially placed blocks, and men everywhere, hauling, dragging, shouting. And you, just one of them. This is your job. You're not a priest. You're not a pharaoh. You're not even one of the high-ranking engineers with papyrus scrolls and clean robes. You're a builder, a laborer, a part of the most impressive structure on earth, and no one will know your name. But your feet know, your back knows. Let's start with the stone. It's limestone today, local, pale, dusty. You've been assigned to a hauling team. That means you and a few dozen others are dragging one of the outer casing blocks from the quarry toward the rising platform. The block weighs somewhere between 2 and 3 tons. It doesn't care how your knees feel. You use ropes made from papyrus fibers, rough and tough enough to dig into your hands. A foreman, his voice hoarse from years of yelling shouts in rhythm. Pull, rest, pull. You feel the wooden sled beneath the block shudder forward over the sand-slicked stone ramp. Yes, a ramp. There are ramps everywhere, some made of mud brick, some compacted sand, some rising like switchbacks along the side of the structure. Historians still argue whether these ramps were straight spiraled or both. You don't argue. You just pull. Someone beside you grumbles about his shoulder. Someone else sings. You don't. It's too early for songs. As the sun climbs higher, everything starts to shimmer. Not from magic, just heat. The kind that makes you blink and forget where you were going. You stop for a moment to drink. The water's warm. The jug is shared. It tastes a little like dust and a little like copper. You don't care. You're grateful it's there. A whistle blows. Not really a whistle. More like a reed flute, A signal. Break time. You sit down in the narrow sliver of shade cast by the ramp. A man next to you tears into a chunk of bread coarse barley flat, baked in a communal oven back in the workers' village. He offers you a piece. You take it. You chew slowly. No one talks much. It's the silence of shared exhaustion. You don't need to speak. You're all building the same thing. Together. And that pyramid, it's massive. Even now, barely a third finished it, already towers above the village. Its base alone stretches longer than a football field in every direction. Every block placed is one step closer to something eternal. You don't say that out loud. That kind of talk sounds too much like the priesthood, but you feel it. Not pride exactly, but a kind of stubborn purpose. The stones you drag will outlive you, outlive your children, outlive your entire village. They'll sit here while kingdoms fall and rise again. You wipe your forehead. More hauling awaits. There's a schedule posted etched onto a piece of wood, stuck upright in the sand. A rough calendar of teams and targets drawn in black ink by a temple scribe. Your team is expected to move 4 blocks today. You've moved 1. Time to move the second. You return to the ropes. This time the block sticks a little. A man pours water in front of the sled to ease the drag. Mud makes everything slide better. You pull, you grunt, you curse. Quietly. This is what it's like to build a pyramid. Not glory, not mystery, just stone and time, and your body being slowly carved down by both. By late morning, your shoulders are raw. The skin between your thumb and forefinger is sore from rope burn. The sun sits directly above, pressing down like a second block. You lean against a low wall and close your eyes. A breeze stirs. For a moment you imagine being back in the village near the Nile, where the palm trees sway and your aunt yells at chickens, but you're not there. You're here, at the base of the world's biggest stone ambition, and you're building it. The wind dies, and the moment with it. You stand up slowly, spine creaking, like the sleds you've been pulling. Someone near you makes a joke about your age. You're maybe 30, and everyone laughs. Not because it's funny, but because it's easier than remembering there are still 2 more blocks to move before nightfall. As you wipe grit from your eyes, a thought drifts across your mind, half formed, half resentful. Why me? You've heard the stories. You've seen the paintings on the temple walls. The great Pharaoh calls on the gods and commands legions of slaves, chained and starved, whipped into moving stones with inhuman obedience. Except that's not what this is. You look around, there are no chains, no slave markets, no haggard men forced into service under the desert sun, just people, tired ones, loud ones, people like you. Because here's the truth, historians now agree on. The pyramids were not built by slaves. They were built by workers, paid, fed, organized workers, citizens and villagers from across the kingdom, conscripted for a season or 2 each year, or hired outright from nearby regions. You are one of them, and sure, it's hard labor. You get blisters. You get yelled at. You sometimes get diarrhea from water that's definitely not clean. But you also get housing, food, beer, medical care, days off for festivals, even burial rites. Not bad considering most people in the ancient world weren't guaranteed a grave at all. You chew your bread slowly and look around again with new eyes. To your left is Neshi, the guy who always talks about going home to his fishing boat when the project's done. He has 3 kids and exactly one joke that he tells over and over. Behind him is Panesi, the rope specialist. He knows how to loop, bind, and brace a sled better than anyone. And he's the reason your shoulder didn't dislocate yesterday. And down the ramp a ways is Hentawi, who sharpens copper tools in the shade and sings off key every afternoon. These are your people, not slaves, workers, neighbors, friends. You work in rotations. Teams come and go with the seasons, especially when the Nile floods and fields can't be farmed. The state feeds you clothes, you assigns you tasks. You're part of something bigger. Not a volunteer, no, but not a prisoner either. The workers' village nearby proves it. It's not a slum. It's a planned settlement with rows of mud brick homes, bakeries, breweries, storage rooms, even medical quarters. Archaeologists will someday find bread ovens and fish bones and tiny carved statues tucked under floorboards. They'll see family life, religious charms, and yes, complaints scribbled in broken hieroglyphs on a wall. You live in one of those houses, 4 to a room if you're lucky, sometimes 5. It smells like sweat and barley, like old sandals and drying laundry. The walls are soft pressed from mud and straw, and during the cooler months, you sleep better than a pharaoh. Each morning, you report for your assignment. Some days, it's hauling. Other days, it's digging the trench around the site's perimeter. If you're unlucky, it's latrine maintenance. You try not to think about the elite tombs nearby, those well-fed officials, buried with gold amulets and cats. They'll get statues. You won't. You might get a modest stone if you die while employed here. Maybe your name's scrawled in red ink on a worker's roster. But that doesn't bother you like it used to, because you've seen the scale of what you're building. You've climbed halfway up the pyramid once when you had to fix a ramp rail. From there, the whole world seemed to tilt around you. Sand, sky, river, stone. This project isn't for the pharaoh alone. It's for time. You've heard it said by one of the older men that this monument is being built not for the dead, but for forever. You're not just moving blocks, you're etching your century into the skin of the earth. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. You rise again, brushing crumbs from your lap. The foreman shouts. Another block waits. You pick up the rope, not because you're forced, but because this is your work. And for now, your name is stitched into the pyramid's shadow, whether the world remembers it or not. The sun hasn't even crested the horizon yet, but someone's already shouting. A pot clatters. Someone curses. The day begins as it always does, early, dusty, and sore. You roll off your sleeping mat with a groan that comes from somewhere deep in your spine. Every muscle aches like it's been carved from stone. Your tunic sticks to your back. The air smells like feet barley and someone's stale beer breath. Welcome to Morning on the Pyramid Crew. You're not surprised. No one is. This is how mornings go when you sleep shoulder to shoulder with 3 or 4 other men in a mud brick room the size of a storage closet. Your only pillow is your folded up outer robe. Your dreams are half sand, half screaming foremen. Still you rise, because if you don't get to the muster line early, you'll miss out on your bread ration, and someone else will get the good task like sharpening tools in the shade. Not that good means easy, just less painful. Someone outside shouts again. The village stirs. You stretch your arms, wiggle your toes, and bump into someone still snoring. Kem. Always the last to get up. Always claims he's sick. Never is. You throw a pebble at him anyway, for morale. Outside, the sky is just starting to glow that strange pink that tells you the sun is about to start its daily project of trying to kill you. You tie your belt, grab your water skin, and step into the sand. Your first stop is the ration line. It snakes around the bakery, which is already belching smoke from the night's coals. You stand quietly behind a man, humming through his nose, and a woman carrying 3 jugs on her back. She doesn't look like she's slept in days. The bread, when it comes, is warm but hard. It's shaped like a rough oval, cracked on top with a smell of yeast and dust. You tear it open and chew while walking, letting crumbs fall into your tunic. No time for ceremony. Today you've been assigned hauling again. Of course you have. The foreman calls out the teams. He doesn't look up from his board. His scribe stands next to him, recording names with a reed pen, muttering under his breath. 4 men to South Ramp, 2 to Quarry Edge. You, yes, you sleepy one, East Perimeter cleanup. Don't make that face. You're placed in a 5-man team today, working the Western Hall path. That's the one with the bad incline. The one they haven't re-sanded in days. The one that chews up your sandals like they're made of papyrus noodles. You sigh. Still chewing the last of your bread, you shuffle toward the tool pile. There's a stack of ropes, coarse, stiff, coiled like angry snakes, and wooden pry levers that somehow weigh more than your leg. You grab one. It splinters your palm. Naturally, the block you're assigned today is a medium-size limestone slab. Not the heaviest you've moved, but awkward. Too wide to steer easily. Too short to balance. It rests on a sled carved from sycamore and reinforced with bronze nails. You and your team gather around it. One man spits on his hands. Another adjusts the strap across his back. No one speaks much. It's too early for that. The foreman calls out, "Yalla, move." You lean forward. The rope bites into your shoulder. The sled groans. The block shifts. You begin the slow, steady walk of a pyramid laborer. Every day the same. every step deliberate. The ramp is unforgiving. The sun, now higher, begins to bake the backs of your legs. You try not to think about how far you still have to go or how heavy this block will feel by midday. Historians still argue whether these workers did this willingly or under duress, whether this was patriotism or taxation or spiritual duty. You're not sure it matters. Right now, it's just a job, and one that starts before the sun has properly said hello. By the time you reach the halfway marker on the ramp, you're soaked through. Your mouth is dry. Your shoulder has gone from numb to burning and back to numb again. But the block is moving. That's all that counts. Half an hour later, you reach the top of your section. A team of masons waits, their copper chisels in hand. They nod. You nod. The block is passed off like a baton in a race no one signed up for. You collapse next to a pile of sandbags and exhale the longest breath of the morning. Someone nearby hands you a small cup of warm beer, barely fermented, barely cold, but blessedly wet. You sip, you sit, you squint at the horizon, and that's the rhythm of it. Wake, eat, pull, sweat, sip, repeat. You didn't build the pyramids because you were forced. You didn't build them for glory. You built them because it's what your life has become. And strangely, you're okay with that. You just wish you got to sleep in once in a while. You drag your feet back to the village at dusk. Every step feels like it might be your last. Not dramatically, just realistically. Your legs aren't sure they're still attached. Your arms have stopped complaining. They've given up. But you made it. You crossed through the gate. No guards, just two half-asleep workers, sitting on overturned baskets and muttering about someone's broken tool. One of them nods to you. You nod back because speaking would cost too much energy. This is your home, at least for now. The workers' village near the pyramid isn't a cluster of random tents or scattered huts, like people think. It's planned, designed. Someone probably with a stylus and a clipboard thought about airflow, waste pits, grain storage, and how many people could sleep in a 10 by 10 room without starting a rebellion. The first thing you notice is the smell. It's not bad exactly, just dense. A heavy mix of sweat, bread dust, beer, foam, and wet linen, occasionally cut with the bright sting of fish or the vague rot of something that's been dead too long. It's the scent of 500 people trying their best under the sun. Your room is near the edge of the southern quarter, 4 walls of sun-dried mud brick, a flat roof, and a floor of trampled dust so compacted it might as well be stone. You step inside and immediately trip over someone's sandal, probably Kim's. Again. Inside are 3 others. Neshi's already asleep, snoring with his mouth open. Panesi is sitting on the floor, cleaning a copper chisel with obsessive slowness. The 4th bed is empty. One of your bunkmates is probably still in the latrine queue. You drop onto your mat. Your back cracks. You exhale a sound somewhere between a prayer and a whimper. You don't speak, but you're grateful the room is quiet, except for the snoring, always the snoring. There's a central plaza in the village where people gather after shifts, eat, argue, flirt, gamble. A man is playing a bone flute badly. Someone else is telling a story about a crocodile in the canal. You're too tired to join them, but you hear the echo of life anyway. It helps. Food comes soon. You don't have to fetch it tonight. It's your bunkmate's turn. He comes back carrying a pot wrapped in cloth lentils, barley porridge, onions, and 2 small loaves of bread that are already slightly hard. It's hot. It's bland. It's perfect. You eat slowly not because you want to savor it, but because your jaw is too tired to chew fast. You sip a little beer from a shared clay jar. It's thick, murky, slightly sour. Someone once joked that it was made of mud and dreams, but it does the job. Your eyes burn from the grit of the day. You wash your face with water from a chipped jug. You pour some over your feet. The sand runs off in little rivulets. You could swear it takes the soreness with it. And still it's not a bad life. Not easy. Not comfortable. But not cruel. There are healers in the village. Midwives. Cooks. Tool makers. There's even a scribe who lives in the northern quarter who writes love letters for people who don't know how. People joke. People fight. People fall in love, have children sing songs, swap gossip, and carve tiny statues of gods to keep by their mats. Because this place, it's not a prison camp, it's a community. And you're part of it. You lie down again. The mat is woven from reeds, slightly uneven, just soft enough to make you forget that your bones hurt. A tiny oil lamp flickers by the wall, casting shadows that move like lazy spirits. You think about your family, your brother, who stayed home to fish, your cousin, who became a scribe and writes poetry no one understands, your mother, who kissed your forehead before you left and handed you a tiny scarab amulet you still keep in your belt pouch. You think about tomorrow, another block, another hall, another evening just like this, and you realize it's not terrible. Your living quarters smell like bread and feet, yes, but they also smell like the smoke from dinner and the clay of the village oven and the sweat of people who are working together to do something impossible. You won't be remembered, but you'll remember this, and that's enough for tonight. The next morning comes with no surprise, no birdsong, no gentle light through silk curtains, just the familiar thunk of a water jug hitting the ground outside, and the gravel-throated voice of someone yelling, "Up, lazy, bones." You've been assigned a different task today. Block shaping. Your heart sinks a little. Not because it's harder. It's just less rhythmic, less predictable. And it comes with a higher chance of accidentally dropping a chisel on your own foot. You gather your kit, a copper chisel, a worn wooden mallet, and a handful of smaller tools you've had for months. Your foreman inspects them like a high priest, checking for sins. You nod when he mutters, "Serviceable," which is about as close to a compliment as anyone gets. Today you're working at the cutting yard, a wide, dusty space between the main ramp and the storage depot. Dozens of blocks lie in rows like sleeping animals. Some are still rough from the quarry. Others are half-shaped with corners marked by soot lines and notes in red ochre guides scribbled by the master mason. You kneel beside your block. It's limestone again, with a stubborn vein running through the center like a scar. You tap your chisel lightly to test the sound. Dull thud. This one's going to fight. But you know what you're doing. You start with the edges, shaving off slices the thickness of a fingernail. Each strike is careful. Not too hard copper dulls quickly. Not too soft, then it takes forever. Your rhythm becomes a song unspoken, but familiar. Tap, scrape. Tap, scrape. The man next to you sneezes, then curses at his own hands. You don't look up. This is what you actually do all day. Not uncover secrets, not decode alien blueprints. You don't know what a power crystal is. You shape stone. You cut grooves. You flatten surfaces. You make one corner meet another in a language of quiet geometry. A foreman walks by. He stops, eyes your work. He runs a finger along the edge, nods once, says nothing, moves on. That's high praise. Nearby, two men are mixing mortar, a pasty blend of gypsum and water that dries like stone. They argue about ratios, each convinced the other is ruining the sacred balance. One gestures so wildly, he knocks over a pot. You smile into your chisel. Farther up the slope, you can hear the rhythmic grunts of a hauling crew dragging another stone toward its resting place. Their chant carries over the yard, muffled but steady. Tap, scrape. You lose track of time. The sun climbs. Your fingers ache. Your knees are stiff. You stop to sip from your water skin and rest your forehead on the stone. It's still cool, for now. You think about the strange dignity in shaping something that will never carry your name. You think about that story told by a scribe during lunch that Pharaoh once disguised himself as a laborer and worked among the men unnoticed. No one believes it, but everyone retells it anyway, because even if it isn't true, it's comforting. It makes the work feel sacred, like a prayer in stone. Around midday, you move to a new block. This one's better. It rings clean when you tap it. You fall into rhythm, quickly. A small breeze kicks up dust and stings your eyes. You blink through it. A younger worker walks by and watches you work. His chisel slips in his hand like it's still new to him. He doesn't say anything, but you know the look. You pass him your backup mallet. A nod of thanks. He'll lose it by next week, but you don't care. That's how this place works. Knowledge travels in gestures. Generosity comes without expectation. You've borrowed your share of tools. You've broken your share too. By late afternoon, your hands are chalky white from the dust. Your mouth tastes like lime and sweat. You've shaped 2 blocks today, not a record, but solid work. You look at them side by side, lined up in perfect near silence. They'll be placed soon, and no one will know your hand carved them. But they'll last longer than names. A foreman calls it time to clean up. You gather your tools and scrape them gently with a piece of reed. You wipe your hands on your tunic. You stand and stretch back, popping like a sack of pebbles. The stone stays behind, but something of you stays with it, even if no one ever knows. Lunch break comes not like a holiday, but like a sigh. Sudden, welcome, brief. You don't need a bell to tell you it's in your bones. The chisel drops from your fingers before your brain even says, stop. You stand slowly, joints protesting, eyes stinging from the dust that somehow found its way into every pore. Someone nearby calls beer, half question, half plea. You nod. There's no lunchroom, no mess hall, just scattered spots of shade, some a gift from makeshift awnings, others cast by the looming body of the pyramid itself. You find a corner of cool sand behind a stacked pile of finished blocks. It's not much, but it's enough. You sit. You don't even bother dusting yourself off. One of the cooks from the village passes by with a basket of food wrapped in reed mats. She hands you a lump of barley bread, dense, brown, hard as memory. You thank her with a grunt and tear it in half. It's dry, so you dip it into your second gift, a clay jug of beer. Not the kind of beer you might know. This isn't golden or fizzy or refreshing. It's cloudy, warm, half-fermented, thick enough to chew. It smells faintly of dates and riverbank mud, but it goes down easy and it softens the scratch in your throat. Most days, it's your only relief. You're joined by 3 others. You don't talk much. Maybe a few murmurs about someone's injured ankle or how the south ramp is a death trap. Neshi makes a joke about the beer being made from river frogs. You laugh. Not because it's funny, just because the silence needed cracking. You eat in peace. Or, well, relative peace. Because across the way, 2 men are arguing again about who broke the chisel last week. The blame keeps circling back and forth like a vulture that can't decide which corpse it wants. Eventually, someone tosses a bit of bread at them and says, "Shut up," or "Fight properly." They don't. They just keep grumbling. The foremen pretend not to hear. Lunch is short, but not rushed. You chew slowly. Each bite feels like it might be your last for the day. Even though you know dinner will come eventually, you sip more beer. You lean back. You let your eyes close. Not sleep exactly, but something adjacent. It's in this moment with your belly halfway full and the sun mercifully blocked by a stone the size of your grandmother's house that you feel something like calm. Strange, considering your tunic is damp, your fingernails are full of dust, and you're pretty sure you've lost sensation in your left shoulder. But calm still. Because here's the secret, no one writes into the papyrus scrolls. The break matters more than the building. It's here in the quiet middle of the day where you remember you're a person. Not a rope, not a tool, just a guy eating onion-dipped bread with other guys who smell equally bad and care equally little. You've got half a fig, too. You saved it from the morning ration. It's squished now, but sweet. You suck the juice from your fingers, and maybe you think for a moment about what you'd be doing if you weren't here. Fishing on the river, maybe. Selling mats in the market. Sleeping late. Getting yelled at by your mother for stepping on her weaving. But you're here. And weirdly, it's okay. A scribe once said that working on the pyramid is a form of worship, that every stone placed is a prayer. You're not sure about that. You mostly just pray your chisel doesn't break again, but still, the thought lingers when the whistle blows, just a reed pipe played sharp. You rise, groaning, brushing crumbs from your lap. You stretch once, twice, and feel your spine attempt mutiny. You look around. Everyone else is doing the same. Stretching, yawning, rubbing sore arms. Back to it. The afternoon's second half looms like the sun at your back. You grip your tools again and return to your post. You'll work until your arms give out. Then you'll eat again. Then you'll sleep surrounded by the sounds of 1,000 others doing the exact same thing. Because here in the middle of nowhere, under the eye of a half-finished pyramid and the godless heat of a July sun, bone-tired is the default setting. But so is belonging. And that alongside flatbread, lukewarm beer, and the sound of someone else's argument is enough to get you through the day. You return to your stone after lunch with a new layer of dust on your shoulders and a little less patience than you had this morning. The sun, now fully awake and utterly merciless, slaps your face with every step. The breeze you hoped for at midday has taken a personal day. The only thing stirring the air now is heat, rising invisible waves off the limestone blocks around you. You glance at your half-finished work. It stares back, blank as ever, unbothered, eternal. A fresh set of chisel marks wait to be made. You set to it. One of the myths about pyramid builders, repeated endlessly by people who've never touched a chisel, is that you used advanced tools, iron saws, lasers, alien plasma cutters. You'd laugh if your lips weren't so dry. Here's what you actually have: copper. Copper. Soft enough to bend if you sneeze wrong. Dulls faster than your appetite for lentils. But it's what you've got. You sharpen it constantly. You chip. You tap. You learn its limits and work around them. You don't fight the stone. You coax it. This is why masons like you talk about limestone like it's alive. You listen for its moods, feel for its grain. One block can be stubborn, another might flake in your hands. You treat each one like a relative, annoying, but inescapable. Your hands ache already. The chisel vibrates against your fingers in a way that makes your bones buzz. You wipe your face with your forearm and keep going. A man nearby lets out a long, angry growl. His tool snapped. Again, you exchange looks. Not sympathy exactly, just a shared sense of, yeah, this place. but there's help. You walk over to the tool shed, a shaded stall, run by a leathery old man who sharpens and shapes metal with an endless stream of complaints. He sizes you up before handing over a replacement chisel. You break this one, he says you owe me a fig. You nod solemnly. The fig economy is real. Back to work. You crouch again, aligning the blade to the edge of the block. You whisper something to it, not a spell, not a prayer, just a muttered, "Come on." And you start again. This section of the pyramid you've heard is for the inner chamber, somewhere deep inside the structure. A space no one will see once the last block is placed. Hidden, sealed, forgotten. You pause and wonder why. Why make something perfect only to bury it? Historians still argue about it, whether it was symbolic, ritualistic, protective, whether the pharaoh believed his spirit would dwell there, whether it was just habit. You don't know. You just know that even the parts no one will see have to be exact, smooth, aligned, square, within a whisper. The gods apparently care about corners. You work through the heat, through the silence, through the strange hum that sets in when you're too tired to feel tired. Time doesn't pass in normal increments anymore. It melts. It blurs. You don't notice the sun moving, only the angle of the shadows creeping across your work. A foreman passes by. He grunts approval at someone else. Doesn't see you. You don't mind. You're not here to be noticed. You're here because stone doesn't shape itself. Nearby, someone starts a low song, a working tune, old and slow, passed down from who knows where. It doesn't rhyme. It barely has a melody, but it moves something in your chest. You find yourself tapping your chisel in time with it. There's beauty in this. Not glamour, not glory, just continuity. You're part of a line of hands stretching back farther than you can imagine. Hands that carved, placed, shaped, and walked away. You will too. But not yet. The block is almost finished. You run your fingers along its edge. Smooth. Almost too smooth. The light catches it just right, and for a moment, you imagine the pharaoh himself, running his hands here one day on his final walk through the tomb. Then the moment passes. You stretch, sigh, and prepare for the next block. It's larger, and it's looking at you like it knows exactly how tired you are. You grin. "Let's dance," you mutter, and you begin again. Evening doesn't fall so much as it slumps, like a heavy man settling into a chair after a long walk. The light goes gold, then amber, then the soft blue of almost night. You're still out on the shaping yard, squinting at your final block, trying to decide if that corner is straight enough to pass or if it'll haunt you in the morning. You decide it's good enough. That's today's lesson. Good enough is holy. You stand up, brush your hands on your tunic pointlessly, since it's now a shade of tan that no amount of washing will fix, and head back toward the workers' village. The path home is well worn. Your feet know every stone, every uneven patch of dust. You pass the same slope where someone tripped last week and broke his ankle. They carried him to the healer on a board, muttering about How the gods must have blinked when that block slipped. The village is quieter than usual. The night before a festival always is. You'd almost forgotten. Tomorrow is the Feast of Bastet, a celebration of the cat-headed goddess, protector of homes, guardian of joy, bringer of song perfume, and things that actually smell good, which frankly is a novelty around here. And while you're no priest, you're very much in favor of any festival that comes with less hauling and more food. As you arrive at your house, the scent hits you. First grilled fish, marinated in something spiced and sharp. There's lentils, too, and a bowl of dates being passed around like treasure. The neighbors are already sitting outside on low stools, singing badly and drinking better. Someone's playing a drum that sounds like it's made from a flipped-over bucket. Children dart between legs, pretending to be cats. Adults pretend not to trip over them. Inside, Kem is adjusting his best tunic, a slightly less stained version of his daily wear. He grins at you, a half-eaten onion in one hand. You forgot, didn't you? You shrug. He laughs. Typical. Someone hands you a cup of festival beer. It's stronger than the daily brew, slightly sweet, with a hint of honey. You take a long sip and feel your shoulders start to loosen for the first time in days. Here's the part most people forget when they imagine pyramid builders. You weren't just workers. You were humans, with gods, with songs, with festivals. And yes, with very mixed singing voices. The Feast of Bastet is sacred, yes, but also lively. It honors the goddess with dance perfume music and laughter in a world full of sand heat and death. Bastet reminds people that there's joy too, that the world isn't only about surviving, it's about feeling. A girl nearby draws a cat symbol on your hand with charcoal. You nod in thanks. She giggles and runs off. Her brother tries to copy it with a stick and nearly stabs himself. There's a fire pit in the center of the square. Around it, someone begins a story. It's about a cat who tricked the sun god into giving her more fish. Completely ridiculous, possibly offensive to any priest within hearing range. But no one cares. Because tonight, for once, no one's lifting blocks. Tonight you laugh. You eat until you're full. You drink until the dust in your mouth is just a memory. A scribe across the way starts sketching the crowd, quick strokes on a scrap of plaster. He says it's for a mural, or maybe just for fun. You're not sure he's even sober. Someone brings out a lute. The song is slow, mournful, beautiful in the way only a song sung by tired people can be. You lean back against the wall of your house, head tilted to the stars. You forget about the pyramid. You forget about the tools, the blocks, the rope burns. You remember what it's like to be a soul, not just a spine. There's a saying you once heard: the gods live in laughter. You don't know if that's true, but you'd like to believe it. The fire crackles. Someone tells another joke. It's terrible. It earns a round of groans and a single delayed laugh from an old man who clearly just got it. And in that moment you realize this matters too. Not just the stone, but the stories told around it. You wake up the next morning with a sore throat, not from dust, but from laughing too hard. Your head is thick, not hangover thick, just woolly, like your brain hasn't quite reassembled itself from the night before. There's dried charcoal still smudged on your hand where the cat symbol once proudly sat. The girl must have used oil with it. Smart. Your muscles protest as you sit up. The party was good. The sleep was better. And now, it's back to work. Sort of. Festival days come with a different rhythm. You're still expected to show up, still expected to be useful, but the foremen are in better moods. Some of them even smiling, and the jobs are lighter. No hauling today. No shaping. You've been assigned to tool maintenance. Tool maintenance is exactly what it sounds like. Sharpening blades, checking mallets for splinters, re-wrapping handles with twine, and most importantly, figuring out which tools have mysteriously vanished over the last week and politely encouraging them to reappear. You head to the tool hut after a quick wash and a bite of leftover bread. It's quiet today. Even the goats seem to be taking a break. The hut is cluttered but familiar. Smells like sweat copper and that faint tang of flint dust. The man in charge of the tools, everyone just calls him Uncle Grunts, in your direction and tosses you a bundle of dull chisels. You know the routine, and you do. You take the stones to the sharpening slab, a wide chunk of basalt set into a carved trough. You kneel, wet the stone, begin. There's something almost meditative about this. Shh, shh, back and forth. Your hands remember the angle instinctively. 12 degrees, maybe 15, just enough to kiss the edge without grinding it away. You test the blade by running it across your thumbnail. It shaves off a sliver of keratin. Good. Next, this job gives you time to think, not in the dreamy, philosophical sense, more like the tired kind of thinking that drifts. You wonder who decided basalt makes the best sharpening surface. You wonder if the pharaoh ever thinks about the people who prepare the tools that shape his tomb. You wonder if you remembered to fill your water jug all the way this morning. You didn't. A boy comes by to deliver more blades. He's young, 12, maybe 13. Still skinny, not yet bent by labor. He asks if he can try sharpening one. You nod. He fumbles it, of course. Too much pressure, wrong rhythm. But you guide his hands, show him the angle. Let him listen to the sound, because that's half the skill. It's not about strength, it's about respect. Respect for the edge, the metal, the tool, for what it's going to do. You're not shaping the pyramid right now, but you're shaping the thing that shapes the pyramid, and that matters. Historians still argue whether the pyramid workers were taught specific trades or rotated through every task. You know from experience, you learn what you can where you can from whoever has a moment to spare. You learned tool sharpening from Uncle. You learned rope splicing from a woman with hands like leather and a voice like thunder. You learned block alignment from a man who could measure by eye to within half a finger width. You learned how to find shade at any time of day, how to spot a cracked stone by its tone, how to carry a load without wrecking your back. None of this is in the scrolls, but it's the knowledge that keeps the stones moving. Midway through the morning, someone brings by a box of broken chisels. You sort them into piles, usable, fixable, and scrap. The fixable ones get their heads reshaped over a flame and pounded back into form. The unusable ones go into the mystery pile, the one that might be useful later and never is. You share a quiet joke with the boy. He asks how many chisels it takes to build a pyramid. You shrug. All of them. He laughs, says he wants to be a foreman someday. You nod. Don't say anything. You remember saying that once too. The hours pass. You've sharpened 30 tools by now, maybe more. You've cut your thumb once, cursed twice, and sweated through your second tunic of the day. The sun's easing downward, but the air is still heavy. You sip the last of your water, and you feel strangely content. Because there's something deeply satisfying about setting things right, about restoring edge and order to tools that others have dulled. It's a small thing, quiet, uncelebrated, but it matters. You hand the boy your extra whetstone. He beams like it's gold. You gather the sharp blades, tie them into a bundle, and deliver them back to Uncle, who grunts again, his highest form of praise. You leave the hut and walk past the scaffolding toward the ramp. The pyramid gleams in the distance, still unfinished, still growing. And you think tomorrow someone will shape a block with one of the chisels you've sharpened. They'll curse it, praise it, use it to make something that lasts 1,000 years, and you'll have touched it first. The pyramid looks different at sunset, not just because of the angle of the light, though. Yes, the golden wash across its flanks makes the limestone glow like some mythical creature slumbering in the desert, but because of what you see when you're not working on it. It's huge, not in the abstract, not in a math problem way. Visually, viscerally. From this distance, the ramp looks like a vein feeding a giant heart. The blocks, each weighing as much as 6 men, are tiny tooth-colored dots from here. You've touched those dots, carved them, hauled them, and yet the whole still dwarfs every sense you have. You're not working this evening. Not really. Just watching. Tonight you've been invited to observe something rare, the laying of a cornerstone. These aren't daily affairs. This isn't someone dumping a rock and calling it a Tuesday. This is ceremony. The foremen are all there, which means they're grumpy and pretending not to be nervous. A priest stands nearby holding a small bundle of herbs and an oil-soaked cloth. Someone's muttering about the stars needing to align, about sacred geometry, about don't mess it up, or the whole thing leans left forever. You chuckle. No one notices. The block itself is smaller than most, maybe waist high, but it's perfect, polished, inscribed with faint red grid lines. It's been measured, checked, aligned, and blessed at least 3 times. And now, as the sun dips behind the ridge and casts the last orange streaks across the sky, it's ready. 24 men, your fellow builders, grip the ropes. Slowly, steadily, they lower the block into place. It fits like it's always belonged there, like the desert was waiting for it. The priest steps forward. He pours oil along the edges, sprinkles herbs, murmurs words you don't catch. He lays a small amulet in a hollow beneath the stone. The goddess Ma'at, you think, for balance, for truth. A foreman checks the level, adjusts a corner with a wooden wedge. Done. Everyone exhales. You clap once softly. This might seem minor in the grand scheme of 2 million stones, but you know better, because pyramids aren't built in sweeps. They're built in moments. And this one sticks in your memory. Later that evening, as you walk back toward the village, you pass by the animal yard. Most people forget about this place, but the pyramid site requires animals, oxen, for dragging donkeys, for carrying even a few stray cats who have appointed themselves guardians of the grain stores. They prowl like they own the place, which, let's face it, they probably do. You stop for a moment beside an ox, its flank still damp from the day's labor. You run your hand down its side. It turns its head slowly, blinking at you, with the calm acceptance of a creature who has nothing left to prove. A stable boy appears and grins. "She likes you," he says. You nod. You like her too. Because animals get it. They don't overthink. They don't worry about alignment or geometry. They pull, they stop, they rest, and in between, they exist. You envy that sometimes. A few minutes later, you're in the plaza again. The fire's low. No festival tonight, just the usual crowd, tired men, quiet women shared bowls of stew. Someone's carving a scarab from a broken stone shard. Someone else is playing a game with knuckle bones. You sit nearby and watch, not speaking. And then, without planning to, you look up at the stars. You don't know all their names, but you know the shapes. The crooked W, the long line with a bright dot at one end. The one that always shows up just after the last bowl of beer. You wonder if one day someone will stand where you are now and look up and think about the people who place these stones. About you. Historians still argue whether names were recorded for common workers, whether builders were honored or forgotten, whether this was duty devotion or just a really long assignment with terrible benefits. But you know, you weren't just building for a pharaoh. You were building for time itself. And tonight, with the starlight on your face and dust still in the lines of your palms, you feel like a tiny part of something immeasurable. That's enough. You stretch your legs, stand up. Tomorrow it all begins again. But for now, you sleep. You dream of blocks that won't sit straight, of chisels that melt in your hand, of ramps that spiral into the sky, of a pharaoh's voice whispering nonsense about symmetry and sacrifices as you try to remember which way is up. You wake up before dawn, heart racing, and then, just as quickly, it slows. Because outside your window, really more of a gap in the mud brick wall, the world is quiet. the kind of quiet that only exists before the birds start arguing and the sun begins its daily grudge match with the horizon. You lie still a moment longer. Listen. Someone's already stirring. A pot clinks. Feet shuffle past. Somewhere in the dark, someone curses softly about stubbed toes. You stretch. Everything pops. A symphony of joints. You stand, splash water on your face, and run your fingers through your hair. Dust falls out. Of course, today you've been assigned to ramp duty, which is not glamorous, which is not relaxing, which is, in fact, the worst combination of lifting, hauling, shouting, and not getting crushed by sliding stone blocks. But it's necessary. The ramp is the pyramid's artery. Without it, the stones stay low, and the pharaoh stays mortal. With it, those stones ascend slowly, grumpily, and with a lot of yelling to become eternal architecture. You arrive just as the first golden light spills over the ridge. The ramp is already humming. Wooden sleds sit ready at the base paired with their oxen and rope crews. Foremen bark instructions. Water boys trot up and down the sides, soaking the sand ahead of the sleds to reduce friction. You take your place. Today your crew is in charge of guiding, not pushing, not pulling. Guiding. It sounds elegant. It's not. It means walking beside a moving boulder while trying to keep it from tipping off the ramp, sliding sideways, or flattening someone's uncle. You grip your staff, a long stick used for nudging, and give your partner a nod. The first block creaks into motion. You walk beside it, murmuring to it like it's a nervous horse. Easy. Stay with me. Don't embarrass us today. The ropes groan. The sled squeals. The block slides. Up the ramp. You adjust your pace constantly. Not too close. Not too far. Ready to jab the side if it veers. Ready to shout if the rope slackens too much. Ready to sprint backward if it tilts. You're alert in a way that no temple scribe will ever understand, because unlike inkstone, doesn't forgive mistakes. Halfway up the sled hits a rough patch. One rope slips, the whole load shudders. Someone shouts, your heart slams once hard. But the crew regroups. One man rewraps his rope. Two others reposition the oxen. You use your staff to nudge the sled half a handspan back into line. And then motion again. You keep going. The whole climb takes maybe 20 minutes, but it feels like a lifetime. At the top, the block is eased into place by another team, carefully, lovingly, like tucking a baby into bed. You and your crew step back, panting, sweaty, exhilarated. You do this 4 more times before breakfast. The pyramid doesn't care if your shoulders ache. The pyramid doesn't pause for bruises. The pyramid asks, can you give me more? And you do, because that's what you're here for. During a short break, you sit on the ramp's edge. It's steep. You swing your legs over, sip from your water skin, and watch the village in miniature below. The yards, the ox pens, the bakery, the smoke rising from the fire pits, the people looking like beetles from this height. Someone offers you a date. You accept. Soft, sweet, better than it has any right to be. A passing scribe sees you and pauses. He's writing something down on his scroll. You assume it's about ramp logistics or daily output, but he glances at you, raises his stylus. Name. You blink. Why? Just for the record. You consider this. Say it aloud. He nods, scribbles something, walks away. You have no idea if that record will last, but for a moment your name was written beside stone. Maybe in 1,000 years, someone will find that scroll. Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll just see the stones and ask, who built this? And maybe, just maybe, your name will whisper back. You smile, because it's not about being remembered by everyone. It's about being remembered by something. The ramp quiets near midday, not because the stones stop, but because the people do. The foremen call a pause. You slump against the warm limestone edge and feel the heat seep through your tunic. The sun, at its apex, has turned everything into a slow, deliberate crawl. Even the oxen breathe slower now. A boy brings around water skins and barley bread. This time, there's a smear of something on the bread, garlic paste maybe. You don't ask, you just eat. You're assigned to a new job for the afternoon, measuring blocks. That sounds easy. It isn't. It means standing over a block with a wooden square, a plumb bob, and a chipped copper ruler, and checking that every edge is true, every face flat, every angle correct. And when it isn't, which is often, it means marking it with red ochre and sending it back to the yard for reworking. You do this in the shadow of the pyramid, and in that shade it hits you again how big this thing really is. You stand beside the wall, looking up, and realize you can't see the top anymore. It vanishes into its own light. From a distance, the pyramid looks geometric, clean, triangular. From here, it's a cascade of blocks, some smooth, some still rough, some bearing the names of teams who placed them scrawled in ink or carved in haste. The Friends of Khufu, one says. The Drunk Oxen team says another, not official titles, but real ones. You pass your hand along a finished face, cool, smooth, almost too perfect. You turn to the block, waiting for inspection. You squat, hold up your square, and check the first edge, slightly off. You grunt and mark it with ochre. You wonder, as you do, how the architects knew what perfect meant, how they made this thing so straight, so precise, without modern tools. Historians still debate the exact methods. Was it plumb lines and simple geometry, or something more, some lost technique, a kind of ancient engineering magic we've forgotten? You don't know, but you know this: the men you work with, old sunburned, half-deaf clever, can spot a crooked edge from 20 paces. And that's its own kind of brilliance. By late afternoon, the wind shifts. It carries silt from the Nile and the smell of fish drying on reed mats. You pause to drink, wiping your hands on your sash. You notice something strange. A team nearby is moving a block sideways, not up the ramp, not toward the pyramid, but parallel to it. You squint. Why? You walk over curiosity stronger than your exhaustion. Turns out they're prepping for corner alignments, laying out a kind of ghost grid to guide the next tier of blocks. The idea is to keep everything square, even as it rises. It's complicated. You watch the foreman, an older man named Set, pull a string taut between two stakes. He checks angles with a simple right-angle tool, then adjusts it by a hair's breadth. He notices you watching. "Want to learn?" he asks, not unkindly. You nod. He hands you the tool. Line it up to that edge. See the shadow. You do. Now tilt it. See how it shifts. You nod again. That shift. That's the pyramid trying to lie to you. Don't let it. You smile. It's the closest thing to poetry you've heard all week. You work alongside. Set for an hour, learning the finer points of string alignment and how to correct for slope and sun angle. It's delicate work, quiet, a kind of stone geometry that feels like solving riddles with your fingertips. And when it clicks, when the grid lines match and the corners hum with symmetry, it feels sacred, not grand, not glowing, but sacred in the way that only precision can be. You thank Set before heading back. He nods once, says nothing. That night, lying on your mat, you sketch the angle tool in the dust beside you. Try to memorize the technique. You don't know why. Just don't want to forget. Because today, for the first time, you didn't just move stone. You understood it. The following morning arrives wrapped in a silver mist, rare, soft, and fleeting. The village is quiet in the fog. You walk through it like someone slipping between two worlds, one of dreams, one of dust. By the time you reach the base of the pyramid, the sun begins to burn it away. The stone beneath your feet feels damp and oddly smooth. Everything seems quieter than usual, like the world is holding its breath. You're not on lifting or carving duty today. Today you've been sent to the surveyor's team, a job spoken about with a mix of fear and reverence. These are the people who determine where everything goes, the ones who point and say, "There," and suddenly hundreds of men start moving blocks in that direction. You meet the team near the northwest edge where a long wooden sight line and a pair of poles have been set into the sand. A man in a short tunic with sharp eyes introduces himself as Amenhotep. He looks at you the way a hawk looks at something that might be edible. "You've got steady hands," he asks. You nod. "Good. Hold this." He gives you a long piece of string tied to a plumb bob and motions for you to stretch it between two wooden pegs in the ground. You do. He checks your work without comment, adjusts the tension, then steps back. What follows is the most precise form of walking you've ever done. Amenhotep uses a measuring rope knotted at intervals to step out distances. You trail behind him, carrying a slate board and marking numbers in chalk. Every few meters, he stops to squint at the horizon, then mutters something about shadow length and angle. You nod, like you understand. You don't. but you're beginning to feel the rhythm of it, the quiet magic of measurement, the idea that the pyramid is not just heavy, it's exact. The team stops at a central marker. Here, buried in a box of stones, is a small, unremarkable stake, the center point, the reference for the entire monument. Everything radiates from this stake. It is, in a way, the pyramid's heartbeat. Amenhotep taps it with the toe of his sandal. "Lose this," he says, and we all start over. You try not to look directly at it again. It feels sacred, not in the way temples are. Sacred like logic, like order. Historians still argue whether the ancient Egyptians used advanced trigonometry or simple tools used brilliantly, whether they had math or just an intuitive sense of symmetry that modern minds underestimate. You suspect the answer is yes. Because Amenhotep doesn't write anything down, he just knows. He sees angles where you see dust. He talks to the sun like it's a colleague. He stares at shadows the way a sculptor stares at raw stone. By mid-morning, he lets you try. He gives you the measuring rope, nods to a row of pegs, and says, "Find true north." You blink. Using what? He grins. Everything. It's a trick, of course. But you squint at the sun. You study the shadows. You remember the little things, which way the oxen usually face, how the morning breeze feels against your cheek, the angle of a certain palm tree's shadow on your walk here. You make a guess. You're wrong, but only a little. Amenhotep slaps your shoulder like a proud uncle. You'll get there. After a quick break under a fabric tarp, the team resumes setting new markers. These will guide the next outer layer of blocks. It's a delicate thing, setting a marker that must outlast wind animals, careless workers, and the strange arrogance of stone. You drive your peg with a mallet, carefully, gently, a little too far. Amenhotep fixes it without speaking. You nod in apology. He nods in reply. That's all it takes. That afternoon you overhear a priest visiting the site. He's standing near a scribe, gesturing at the surveyors. Divine knowledge, he says. Gift of Thoth, god of writing and measurement. The scribe nods, solemn. You glance at Amenhotep, who's currently chewing on a reed and grumbling about ants in his sandals. Divine maybe, but more than that, it's devoted. And in this place, that might be the same thing. That evening, you sit by yourself, sketching the shape of the grid lines in the sand beside your mat. The breeze is cool. The stars are sharp. You try to picture the pyramid finished. You can't. It's too big, too precise, too quiet. But you can picture the markers, the rope lines, the careful steps. And for now, that's enough. Your legs are sore in a different way today. Not the usual ache from lifting or hammering, but that odd stiffness that comes from walking carefully for hours, from balancing stakes and strings, from squinting at angles and forgetting to blink. So, when you see your name on the quarry list for the morning, a strange sense of relief washes over you. The quarry is rough, dangerous, full of sweat, echo, and shouting. But at least you know where your body stands there. You hitch a ride on a sled headed back toward the quarry. The oxen groan under the morning load, and the wooden runners screech across sand-damp planks. You bump along with the men, hair full of dust, before breakfast. It's familiar. The quarry lies just beyond the workers' village, a jagged pit in the desert where limestone waits to become history. You've worked here before. It's loud, crude, unforgiving, but it's also where everything begins. The moment you step into the cut, the air changes, cooler, denser. Shadows stretch along the walls. You hear the rhythmic strike of copper chisels on stone chink. Chink. Pause. Chink. A sound you've come to recognize, almost like a heartbeat. Your job this morning is wedge duty. That means finding the pre-scored blocks, checking the fault lines, and driving wooden wedges into the cracks. Then soaking them. Then waiting, because as they swell with water, the wedges apply slow, relentless pressure, and eventually, with a low groan and a sharp split, the stone gives. That's the theory. Reality, half the time the crack goes sideways and ruins the block, or nothing happens for hours, and someone loses patience and breaks out the hammer. You begin at the edge of a promising block. It's already marked in red, a line zigzagging across the surface like a snake. Someone's carved starter grooves. You slot in the wedges, pour the water slowly from a gourd, and step back. Now you wait. Across the pit, two men wrestle a fallen hammer from a puddle of slurry. Someone curses in 3 languages. A donkey eats a corner of someone's lunch bag. The quarry is a mess, but it's your mess. As you wait for the wedge to do its work, you wander to the tool shed. One of the foreman's short sun-baked arms, like tree limbs, nods to you. You hear for the special, you raise an eyebrow. He holds up a new-style copper chisel, slightly thinner, with a reinforced tip. Fewer breaks, he says proudly. Cuts cleaner, supposedly. You take it, test the weight. It feels sharp in more ways than one. Historians still argue. He mutters whether copper was enough to carve pyramid stone. You look at him. I think it depends who's holding the chisel. He chuckles, walks off. That's the thing. No scroll ever says clearly. The tools matter, but the hands matter more. Later, your wedge block finally gives with a dry, angry crack. The slab shifts. You shout for help. 4 men bring ropes, position the sled, brace their legs. Together you slide the block free. It's dusty, imperfect, heavy as sin, but it's beautiful because it's yours, because you pulled it from the earth. Someone scrawls a mark on it, your team's symbol, a half-sun inside a circle. It'll travel with the stone all the way to the ramp to the pyramid. Your mark, your moment. Back at the pit wall, another group is arguing about slope angles, whether this new seam might open a better path. You approach, join the debate. One man swears there's a pocket of soft stone if they cut left. Another says, right. You close your eyes. Think. Remember yesterday's shadows. You point. Neither. Go down. They look at you, then at each other, then at the stone, and they nod. There's no applause, no celebration. Just a subtle shift. They trust you now. You, who once only lifted, now you decide where to strike. By sunset, you've helped free 3 blocks. You're coated in stone dust. Your hands are raw. Your water is gone, but your heart full. You walk back toward camp with the others, the wind tugging at your tunic, whispering through your hair like a lullaby. Someone sings softly behind you a tune about builders and beer and bones. And you wonder when this is all finished, when the capstone gleams and the pharaoh sleeps beneath 1,000 tons of ambition, will anyone think about this part? The noise, the wedges, the broken backs? Maybe not, but you will. Because before there was grandeur, there was a quarry. You wake the next morning to the sound of rain. Not much, just a drizzle. A whisper, barely enough to settle the dust. But in Egypt, even that is a spectacle. Children race outside to feel it on their faces. Adults pause mid-step to listen. Somewhere, a woman lifts her arms and thanks the Nile for its generosity. You stretch beneath your linen sheet, momentarily convinced you're dreaming. But no, it's real. By the time you reach the pyramid site, the sky has cleared. The ground is a little darker, the stones a little slick. The foremen take no chances. Heavy work is paused. Too risky with wet ramps and slippery ropes. A block at the wrong angle could end up in someone's chest or down the entire length of the ramp. So, today you're assigned to temple duty. Not the temple, the great one being built beside the pyramid for rituals, processions, offerings. That's still scaffolding and stone. No, you're sent to the worker's shrine, a humbler place carved from leftover limestone, where men light incense to Sekhmet, for health, to Ptah, for tools, to Hathor, for luck, and quietly to themselves, for surviving another day. The shrine is quiet this morning. Just the smell of last night's offerings and the flickering of a tiny oil lamp still clinging to life. You've been sent to clean restock votives and help a priest's assistant record names. Names, yes. Names of men who've passed recently, crushed, fallen, dehydrated, or simply too old to continue. Their names are etched into soft tiles of clay, then baked over coals and placed into a low wall near the back. You carry one of the new tiles. It reads, Horemheb, son of Rekti, chisel worker, died 28 days into Akhet. You don't know him, but you feel like you do. You place the tile gently into the wall between others with similar stories. It fits snugly, like it's always belonged there. A small girl is there too, maybe 10 years old. She wipes the edge of the altar with a cloth, then replaces a bowl of dried dates. She doesn't speak, but her eyes scan the wall with quiet focus. Your father, you ask. She nods, then points to a tile already worn smooth with time. You bow your head. She doesn't cry. She just keeps working. Later, you're told to help a scribe inventory the offerings. That means sorting baskets of garlic onions, bread, dried fish, and linen strips into categories: perishable, symbolic, likely to attract cats. The scribe, a man with ink-stained fingers and a nose that sniffs like it's judging you, explains that some offerings are meant for the gods, others for the spirits of the dead. But mostly, he admits, they end up feeding the temple cats. One such cat rubs against your leg now, a dusty gray thing with half an ear and the air of someone who used to be royalty. You feed it a scrap of bread. It nods like a pharaoh. A builder passes by with a wrapped bundle. "Sahure's foot," he says grimly, crushed under a sled. You wince. The bundle is placed near the wall of names. Another tile will be made, another soul added to the quiet mosaic. Historians still argue whether pyramid workers had any spiritual infrastructure beyond state-mandated temple worship. But here in this little shrine, you feel something real, not grand, not golden, just present. A worker kneels beside you to light incense. His hands are shaking. He doesn't say anything. You don't need him to. This is a place of silence, of breath, of pause. By midday, the sun returns with full force. The dampness is gone. The foremen blow horns, work resumes. Blocks move, ropes pull taut. The pyramid sighs back into motion. But you're still in the shrine, polishing a small copper figurine of Anubis, the jackal god of the dead, guardian of the tomb. His eyes gleam in the lamplight, watchful, patient. You wonder what he sees when he looks at you. You finish your duties and leave a final offering, one perfect date fruit. It's all you have. As you exit, you glance back. The wall of names stands quiet, still, and yet you feel them. They're not gone, not erased. Just move to a quieter shift. That evening you return to your mat and close your eyes with an odd sense of peace. You weren't lifting. You weren't shaping. You weren't carving, but you were honoring. And sometimes that builds something even stronger than stone. The next sunrise arrives with wind, not the gentle breeze you're used to, but a dry, impatient gust that kicks sand into eyes, ears, and open bowls of porridge. Tents flap, linen slaps against skin. The dust hangs thick enough to taste. Everyone mutters, but no one stops, because the pyramid doesn't care about the weather. Your assignment today takes you inside the structure, not the final chambers, that part's still a mystery, but the interior passages where corridors twist and rise, hidden behind scaffolding and flanked by half-finished walls. The air is different in there, colder, stiller, and somehow heavier. You've been sent with a small crew to help reinforce a ceiling that cracked during a recent lift. The stone was too heavy or placed too hard. Either way, it left a jagged line snaking across the lintel like a scar. Inside you see it clearly, the stress line faint but threatening, running the full width of the stone. You run your hand along it. It's warm, breathing. You've been told to install a relieving stone, a wedge-shaped block, placed above the lintel to distribute weight away from the weak point. But first, you wait, because the passage is narrow. Only 2 men can work side by side, and before that the masons must finish the decorative blocks, those with painted stars, reed motifs, and royal cartouches. Even these hidden walls are being dressed with care. You lean against a pillar and watch. One artist sits cross-legged, carefully mixing pigment ground malachite for green crushed ochre for yellow, and something more precious, lapis lazuli, for a single dot of divine blue. You know how rare that is. Blue, they say, is the color of the gods. And here in this narrow shaft, someone is using it for the inner ceiling. Who's going to see it? You ask quietly. The painter doesn't look up. We will. That stays with you. When it's your turn to help lift the wedge into place, the process is slow and nerve-wracking. There's no ramp, no oxen, just a pulley system mounted to the frame above the corridor, creaking with tension as 6 men guide the stone. You're one of the handlers. One slip, and the block could fall, shatter the relief below, or worse, take a leg with it. You press your shoulder against the shaft wall, guide the rope, whisper instructions. Higher, slow, slow. The stone inches up. The air is too still, too tense. Sweat drips down your back despite the cool. Then finally, it locks into place. The stress line below seems to relax like a wound being sutured. Everyone exhales at once. One mason presses a small clay plug into the side, an old tradition, a kind of spiritual nail. You're not sure what god it honors, but it feels anchored. Afterward, you're allowed to explore the inner passage while others clean up. It's not large, maybe shoulder width, but it rises at a precise incline, lit by flickering oil lamps, placed every 10 steps. You run your hand along the sloped wall. It's warm, not like the sun-warmed stones outside. Warm like breath, like time itself has a pulse. At one corner, you find a mark, a faint red figure, a worker's handprint. You place yours beside it. It's the same size. You smile. Historians still debate whether these prints were signatures, blessings, or just idle gestures in wet plaster. But standing here with your palm against another's, you feel connected across unseen centuries. At the end of the passage is a small room, unfinished, empty, except for a single uncut block sitting in the center. Someone's drawn on it in red ink diagrams, measurements, symbols. It's a planning stone, a placeholder for something more refined. You sit beside it for a moment. Think. This room will one day be sealed forever. Whatever happens in here, whoever walks it, paints it, carves it, will vanish when the last block is slid into place. You find that comforting somehow. Not everything has to be seen. Some things are meant to sleep. As you emerge from the interior, blinking against the sun, you see the pyramid anew, not as a monument, but as a body, with arteries and lungs and bones of stone, and you, just one tiny cell, but one that mattered. That night, back in the village, you speak less than usual. You sit with your back against a wall, staring at the stars, and wonder how many of your fellow builders also sat like this, also stared upward, also dreamed that their work, however invisible, might echo forever. The days begin to blend. Stone, sweat, scaffolding, meal muscle dusk. You start to measure time not by the sun, but by how far a wall has risen, how many blocks remain in a tier, or how many toes your crewmates have stubbed on stubborn rocks. You're no longer the newcomer, no longer just a hauler or spare set of hands. People ask you things now. Does this seem straight? Is this shadow too long for this time of day? Do you remember how we did that last week? You do. And more than that, you care. This morning, though, you're summoned for something different. Tool audit, a task for which you're deeply underqualified and overly curious. You follow a boy through the winding village streets to a clay-walled storeroom. Inside, dozens of tools lined up like soldiers. Chisels, hammers, measuring ropes, wooden mallets, copper blades. The keeper, a grizzled woman with no patience for jokes, waves you inside. Check them. Count them. Tell me if anything's cursed. You blink. She doesn't. You begin your tally. The chisels are sorted by tip width, the mallets by wear level, the ropes knotted meticulously. You run your hand along the edge of a flat copper blade. It's warm, from the room slightly warped with age. Still sharp, you find one odd piece tucked beneath a rag, a stone drill wrapped in linen. The bit's copper, but the weight is strange, heavier, balanced differently. Experimental, the woman says behind you. From Memphis, for cylinder cuts. You raise an eyebrow. Does it work? She shrugs. Sometimes. You nod. That sounds about right. Historians still debate whether Egyptian workers used simple abrasion techniques or something more advanced like rotary drills, water pressure, or lost chemical methods. Some fringe theories suggest alien intervention, but holding this tool, you realize it was always just trial and error. Someone trying, failing, adjusting, trying again. Back outside, you join a team reworking a carved lintel that's being hoisted into position. The design is simple, a lotus flanked by two falcons, divine symbols of rebirth and power. But the falcon's eye is off, just a little. A young artist looks close to tears. You crouch beside him. It's not ruined, you say. It's just yours. He doesn't seem comforted. So, you take a chisel, show him how to shave the edge of the pupil, just enough to center it. He watches, learns, tries it himself, fixes it. Later, he thanks you, without words, just hands you half a fig from his lunch. You accept like it's gold. By midday, you're called to help escort a visiting nobleman, one of the pharaoh's cousins or nephews or brothers or something equally delicate and entitled. He's come to inspect the progress and someone decided you look clean enough to explain it without scaring him. You walk him along the lower perimeter of the pyramid. He wears more linen than necessary, carries a fan, complains about the glare, but he listens. You explain how the outer casing stones are laid at precise angles to catch the light, how the inner blocks, what he calls the ugly ones, are placed by weight and pattern, not beauty. You tell him about weight distribution, about thermal expansion in the desert heat, about the way the pyramid breathes in silence. He squints at you. You're not just a laborer, are you? You shrug. Aren't we all something else? He chuckles, perhaps the first honest laugh he's made in years. Before he leaves, he offers you a thin strip of silver. You decline, but he insists. Buy yourself something useless, he says. You nod, unsure whether that's permission or punishment. That night you use the silver to commission a new tool from the copper workers, a custom chisel, shorter handle, angled tip. You've had an idea for how to smooth corner blocks faster, and now you'll find out if it works. The forge master agrees, says it'll take 2 days. You sleep well that night, dreams filled with sparks and edge lines, not of grandeur, not of golden death masks or eternal fame, just efficiency. And somehow that feels sacred. The forge smells like sunburned metal and ambition. You arrive just after sunrise, a bit earlier than needed, but the anticipation has been gnawing at you like a rat on grain. The chisel is ready, wrapped in oiled cloth, still warm from its final tempering. You unwrap it slowly, like a gift. The handle is dark cedar, smoothed to fit your grip. The copper blade gleams, angled, just as you sketched. It's yours, not borrowed, not assigned, yours. You test it on a scrap limestone block nearby. It bites deep with almost no resistance. The edge holds. The corners cut clean. You allow yourself one small grin. The forge master watches from his seat. Sharpness means nothing if your hand shakes. You nod solemnly, but your hand does not shake. Later that morning, you're assigned to the corner team, the elite group responsible for the external edges of the pyramid, where everything must meet exactly where the slope must hold at precisely 51.5 degrees, and where one misaligned block could ruin the symmetry of hundreds stacked above. No pressure. You ascend the ramp slowly. The air is thinner up here, the wind harsher. Below, workers look like ants. The quarry, a distant wound in the earth. But up here, the work feels final. The corner is unfinished, just a set of rough blocks, a dangling plumb line, and a nervous foreman with one hand on his chalk line and the other clutching a measuring stick like a prayer scroll. He glances at your new tool. That thing any good? Only one way to find out. You kneel by the outer block, where a tiny lip of stone juts too far past the chalk line. You brace the chisel angle, your shoulder, and tap. The edge shears away, smooth, perfect. The foreman exhales through his nose. "You're staying with us," he says. And just like that, you're a corner man. The work is different here. Less hauling, more patience, more math. You spend hours just checking angles against plumb lines, against shadow, against instinct. You learn to measure with your eyes first, then confirm with string. You find yourself muttering numbers in your sleep: 33 cubits, half offset, sun angle 20 degrees. You're becoming a person who thinks in stone grammar. One afternoon, a senior builder joins your crew. He's older with a broken nose and the creased eyes of someone who's seen every possible construction failure twice. Know what the hardest part of building a pyramid is? He asks while squinting at the slope. Weight, you guess. No, arrogance. You tilt your head. Every block wants to believe it belongs, but most don't. You gotta tell them where to fit, where not to, and sometimes they fight you. You nod. He's not wrong. Later that day, a shipment of casing stones arrives, Tura limestone, smooth as soap, and bright enough to reflect the sun like polished bone. These are the outermost stones, the ones people will see for generations, maybe forever. You're chosen to help lay the first one of this shipment, a ceremony almost. Someone pours water on the ramp to help slide the stone. A priest chants. A scribe records the moment in ink. You steady the block with both hands. The sun reflects off it so sharply, you squint. It fits into its bed with a soft thud, like it's exhaling. Everyone claps softly. No cheers, just nods. It's not just a block, it's a promise. That evening you descend from the pyramid as the sun dies behind it, casting a triangle of shadow across the sand. The wind is still. The air holds a strange silence, like even the gods are watching. You sit with your crew around a shared bowl of lentils. Someone hums an old song, something about fishing nets and sweet dates. You don't know the words, but you know the melody. A boy approaches and hands you something wrapped in cloth. It's a miniature chisel, carved from wood, painted with your team's symbol. A gift from the young artist you helped days ago. He shrugs. It's not sharp, he says, but it's true. You smile. Because that's all that really matters. That night as you lie on your mat, your muscles ache in that deep, righteous way. But your mind is calm. Because today you touched the edge of permanence and found that your hands were steady. Morning brings a different kind of work, a task not of building upward, but of preparing for what lies beneath. You've been assigned to assist with the chamber floor teams, those who labor in the tight, echoing depths of what will one day become the Pharaoh's eternal resting place. It's quieter here, fewer men, fewer voices. The air is cooler, but oddly still, as if even the wind refuses to disturb this space. You descend slowly, feet echoing on temporary wooden planks, the tunnel sloping gently downward into the belly of the pyramid. Lamps flicker, and every breath smells of hot stone and oil. Somewhere behind you, a mason mutters a prayer to Anubis. You reach the chamber. It's not grand yet. The walls are still rough, the ceiling braced by thick timbers. But the floor is the focus today. Your job is simple: help level it. Simple, yes, but not easy. Because this floor isn't being made for comfort. It's being made for eternity. The limestone must be perfectly flat to accommodate the sarcophagus, the funerary platforms, and the weight of history itself. Every bump is a threat. Every slant a betrayal. You work alongside two other men and a foreman with a scar across his brow. He runs a copper straight edge over the surface like he's petting a cat. No wobble, he says. None. Or the priests will scream. You nod. He gives you a smoothing stone and points to a raised patch. You kneel, grind, feel, again. The rhythm becomes meditative. The scraping sound, the shifting dust, the way your hands learn to feel flatness, not just see it. After a few hours, someone calls for a break. You sit against the wall, sipping lukewarm water and staring at a strange mark scratched into the stone nearby. It's a sketch, a doodle really, of a man lifting a block, grunting, exaggerated muscles and all, underneath a small hieroglyph for idiot. You laugh out loud. Turns out graffiti has always existed. Historians still argue whether pyramid workers were literate, or if only scribes could record ideas. But here's proof. Someone had the time, the tools, and the sense of humor to immortalize this joke. And now you've shared it hundreds or thousands of years later. In the afternoon, the foreman begins laying out the platform grid, a faint chalk outline where the sarcophagus base will sit. It's smaller than you imagined, just a rectangle of possibility. But everyone treats it like sacred ground. You help lay down a reed mat to keep dust from settling. A priest arrives to sprinkle natron and chant in a language older than stone. No one speaks during this, not out of fear, but out of respect, because whatever you believe, this place is about more than just death. It's about continuity. After the ritual, you're asked to help move in the first interior blocks. These aren't carved or fancy. They're support stones, silent, invisible, forgotten, but essential. They'll be buried beneath the chamber, beneath the coffin, beneath the offerings. No one will ever see them again. And yet here you are, sweating to place them just right. One slips a little. You wedge a folded piece of linen beneath the edge to stabilize it. A small solution, unseen. But it matters. As the light dims, the chamber glows with lamplight. Everything feels slower, deeper, like time here is syrup. You finish your last pass with the smoothing stone and sit back. The surface is level, truly level, as if the gods themselves had pressed it flat with the palm of their hand. The foreman inspects, nods. Good, he says, one word, but enough. That night you don't climb all the way out. You sleep in the upper antechamber with the chamber crew blankets against the cold, backs against the stone. Someone hums softly. Someone else snores. You stare up at the half-finished ceiling and wonder what it will feel like to be sealed in. Not now, but when the work is done. When the last block slides into place and this chamber becomes silent forever. And strangely, You don't feel fear. You feel honor, because when that moment comes, a part of you will stay behind. Not your body, but your effort, your care, your fingerprint in the stone. And that will last longer than any name. The sun is merciless today, not just hot heavy, like someone draped the entire sky in burning linen and asked you to breathe through it. The dust doesn't rise because it's been beaten into stillness. Even the flies seem tired, but no one complains. Not today, because the capstone, the final stone, is arriving. And everyone knows what that means. You wake early, but most of the camp is already stirring. Some are baking bread. Others are tightening ropes or adjusting sleds. A few sit in silence, staring at the pyramid like it might disappear if they blink. You walk slowly to the base head, tilted back. The pyramid is almost complete. Almost. The sides gleam, most of the casing stones in place, their faces catching the light like mirrors to the sun. The ramps are narrower now, steeper lined with wear. No more massive blocks being hauled up. Just this one, the last, the Ben stone. Polished, carved, shaped to a precise point, small by pyramid standards, perhaps only a few men tall, but symbolically, everything. The ancient point of creation, the place where the first God stood, the stone that caps the heavens. It arrives on a sled, covered in linen, guided by 10 men, each chosen for their steadiness. One is the artist you mentored weeks ago. He nods at you as he passes face tight with purpose. You climb alongside them slowly, carefully, up the final ramp. Everyone is watching. The priest walks ahead, swinging incense, muttering invocations to Ra and Horus, and kings not yet dead. The workers behind you whisper, some cry. At the summit, the slot for the capstone waits. A cradle of precision. You help guide the stone into place, your hands against the warm limestone, your breath caught in your throat. Left, someone says. Now, forward. A final push. It settles. The sound it makes is quiet. But inside it rings like thunder. The priest steps forward, smears oil along the edges, presses a folded piece of gold leaf into a carved groove. Then silence. For a long time no one speaks. Then a builder, older than most, starts to hum. A work song, low, rhythmic, familiar. Others join in, a harmony not practiced but known. Your hand rests on the capstone. It's warm. You wonder if this is what stars feel like. Historians still argue whether the capstone was gilded or painted or left bare, whether it served a ritual purpose or just marked completion, whether it even existed at all. But your fingers know it's real, because you placed it. That night, there is feasting, dates, bread, fish, honey wine. The workers gather around fires recounting the years, the accidents, the victories, the strange dreams, the lost toes, the pranks, the loves. You sit beside the artist, who now wears a bracelet he carved himself. The boy with the shrine is here, too older by months and wiser by years. You talk about nothing and everything. Later, you walk to the edge of camp and look back. The pyramid cuts the night sky. Still, solid, impossible. But you know every angle, every scar, every name whispered in its walls. You know where your fingerprint lives, where your stone rests, where your life's weight was placed one block at a time. And tomorrow you will rest, because there are no more stones to lift. Not now. Only memories, only silence, only the slow retreat of your breath as the pyramid stands forever as a monument, not just to a king, but to you. So now your eyes are closing, and the stone dust has settled. The pyramid rises behind your eyelids, not as a shape, but as a feeling. Warm, weighty, perfect. You don't need to climb it again. You don't need to explain it. It just is. The days of lifting and hammering are behind you. The cracked lips, the sand-stung eyes, the calloused hands, all are quiet now. Your breath slows. Your body softens. There is no more measuring, no more smoothing, no more waiting for wedges to split. Just a gentle hush, a long exhale, a story finished but never forgotten. And as the stars gather above the desert, one by one, careful, deliberate, like stones in the sky, you know that you too are part of something lasting, something buried, something seen. And in the silence of your dreams, the pyramid glows, not as stone but as memory, not as a tomb but as a whisper, soft, endless, timeless.